Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Ted Bannock. And today is going to be a great episode. It's going to be super good. And I'm really excited.
Wow. No, nothing. It took me by surprise.
That is the surprise.
Okay.
David is now confused.
Okay.
It's like I just don't understand.
Maybe you're just not exhausting. Is that what it is? You're not exhausted until maybe the end of the show, and then you'll start making puns?
That could be.
That could be. Well, Ted, before we get into your list of card puns, I guess we should talk about what's going on with Card Talk, how people can stay in contact with us. If you are listening to us on the podcast, on a podcast audio version, there's a there's a video version, and that's on YouTube and vice versa. If you're watching us, you can go over and take us anywhere you want to go on the audio version. And then there's the blog at cardtalk2018.com. Matt over at the blog keeps track and keeps up with all the cards that we do. And today's card is no different. And then Micah is past the 50 episode threshold at Second Breakfast for us. So he's going strong. So this is exciting, and there's a lot of good things coming on. Swag should be out or out soon here for people who have been patrons of the show for a little while. And so expect that if you want to become a patron of the show, if you want to get access to possible swag, if you want to even call Ted Ready Teddy next time you see him. You know,
and I won't even get mad about it.
Yeah,
so.
you can go over to patreon.com/cardtalk2018 and you can check us all out over there. So Ted, that gets rid of the particulars. Now, why don't you introduce the card that we're going to talk about?
Today's card is the Greenwood Defender.
Mm-hmm.
It is I should just read the card. It's a leadership ally that costs 3. It's got no willpower, no attack, 2 defense, 3 hit points. It is traded Silvan and Warrior. It says response: after Greenwood Defender enters play, it does not exhaust to defend until the end of the round.
Ted, what do you think of this guy? Do you play Silvans? How much do you play Silvans? Often, not often. You like to do weird things.
I like Silvans. Yeah, they get played. So yeah, it's like not too shabby of a card. I know I play him with. I mean, the obvious play with him is Celeborn, right? Is you want to play him, boost his stats, and potentially do multiple defenses in one round.
Right.
Is the biggest thing. But like, I know 3 seems I'm trying to collect all my thoughts on this guy. I know that 3 seems costly to do that, but when he's defending multiple times, I also think he's a much better replacement than there was another Silvan ally that
the Defender of the Nath.
Yeah, which the Defender of the Nath has his place, but I kind of feel like there's reasons to run maybe both in your deck, but I think I prefer to see the Defender of Greenwood first.
Right.
Because you play him, he comes into play ideally with Celeborn, and then he has a 3 defense, and there's a chance he's going to withstand, and actually live through, 2 attacks depending on how your shadow cards go.
Right. It's always the great unknown, right? Those shadow cards.
Yeah, and you can play him during the combat phase too with one of your other favorite heroes, Thranduil, right?
Right.
So, uh, I know a lot of Sylvan decks tend to. I mean, you're the slippery Sylvan. You're really the Sylvan King here. So I'd like to see where you rank him as far as, because there's a lot of Sylvans, right? When you're making
Right.
a Sylvan deck, you cannot possibly put, even if you put like one of,
Right.
your deck would be like 50 Sylvan allies and no other cards, right?
Right. Yeah. And Ted, what? So I'll bring this up. What is the biggest drawback to every card in the game?
Um, well, it has to look nice, because if it doesn't look nice, why put it in your deck? And this guy's cool. He's got like you gotta have him in your hand.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right. And so this is funny because the card that makes him good is also the card that makes him not so good. And so that card that makes him good is Thranduil, by allowing you to bring him into combat without a resource match. But then Thranduil is also your defender in that deck when he has, 3 defense and 4 hit points, and he can, he's really defending. And so, so if I had a choice between pulling, let's say, the Greenwood Defender or the Elven King, which allows me to ready the attached hero, I would rather have the Elven King put onto Thranduil to make a second attack, and then on the Greenwood Defender, then getting a Greenwood Defender out, because after he comes out, like,
I see.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're still just using him to defend one time. And Thranduil, like, if you have more than 2 defenses in a Silvan deck, if you're playing solo, like if you're playing multiplayer, this guy doesn't even have Sentinel. The Defender of the Nath has Sentinel, and that's a little bit better for you there. But,
right.
So if you're playing solo, I just don't think this guy makes it into the deck for exactly what you said, Ted. Like, there's just so many good Sylvans. Like, there's one Silvan deck, really, and there's multiple versions of that same Silvan deck, right? The whole idea of Sylvans is to bring them out and have them go back, out, back, right? And so, and then this Greenwood Defender just allows you to defend. He doesn't naturally go into that, in and out of play, slippery aspect of him, whereas the ways to ready Thranduil does. The Elven King helps that out. I don't know. So
you're saying for the amount that he cost, basically, it's more efficient to ready a hero, right?
Yeah,
especially because you have one that's part of the Silvan lineup, right?
Yeah.
So if you're playing Thranduil, that's a very good point. Or you might have ways to ready him with Unexpected Courage or Elven King especially. So that makes a lot of sense there. But I will make just some other points too. Not all Silvan decks may run Thranduil, right? Some do a more traditional lineup of maybe like Elrond, Galadriel, and Celeborn, right? Then he comes in with Galadriel and boosted stats. He'll quest for 1, and then he'll defend for 3 for that turn without exhausting.
Right.
If you want to engage multiple enemies.
But again, you can still put Elven King onto
unlike
Elrond, who is still a defender. You're not. I get it. That there's a niche that the very squishy Sylvans need a defender, right? Like, I get that there's a version of the Silvan deck where you need a defender, or there's a scenario somewhere where you need a defender. But this guy doesn't necessarily fill the role any more than Defender of the Nath. The Defender of the Nath is a neutral card, and he readies every time a Silvan leaves play. So, like, you know, like, at least that guy has some connection to Silvans coming in and out of play. You know,
Sure.
This guy's just a, you know, two defense.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Is once he's in play, you know, then when his stats go down from Celeborn, unless you're, you know, putting him in and out of play, then he's a little bit lackluster afterwards, because then he's only 2 defense with 3 hit points and no other stats to attack with, unless you invest in an item on him, which is probably not the strongest strategy. But Silvan's aside, he'll make one other point. He can be kind of a neat character to pull out. You can actually play him with Tactics Prince Imrahil, because he's warrior traded. So if Tactics Prince Imrahil will pay a resource, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, pulling out something that matches a trait, which they're both warriors, he would then enter play, and then as a response would trigger, you could choose, and then he could defend multiple times. And if he happens to survive, he'll go back in the deck. But if he blocks like 2 attacks and then dies, like, whatever, he did his job for 1 resource.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And so those are the things that, like, if you sneak attack him into play, you know, like during combat or something, you know, like.
Yeah. If you're in a pinch, you're like, okay, I can drop him in, and now he's going to defend. Because depending on the scenario too, you know, I'm thinking of some of those early Khazad-dûm scenarios where they have a lot of the little tiny swarmy goblins.
Right.
He's pretty good in that, you know, in those scenarios when you have like 3 goblins that all attack for 2.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. There's probably scenarios where that, you know, where he
shines a little bit more.
Shines a little bit more. But yeah. I don't know. Like, what was I saying? You know, there is one Silvan event that relies on cost. So if you use Island Amid Perils to lower your threat, higher cost allies are good for that. So Island Amid Perils.
It's a good way to return them. Yeah, because then you get 3 threat reduction from it.
Right. And so that's, you know, and there are times when you're looking for, you know, higher cost Silvans to help you in that Silvan deck. You know, I'll say more than once have I returned Haldir of Lorien, the ally, into my hand to reduce my threat by 4. You know, like.
Sure. Yeah.
So, you know, this gives you an option there, but I don't think that outweighs, you know, him. I just, you know, I've tried to put defenders in my Silvan deck, and I just, like, I don't know. It's just not worth
you
it.
kind of end up needing them not as often as you think. Like
if you have so many other Silvan cards, you know, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to add Are you going to add the Marksman of Lorien, which is crazy good for 3, or are you going to add this guy, which is, you know, not, you know.
Well, yeah, you need both. I think you need both attack and defense, and this is just one defensive option.
Right. There's in a trait where defense is not a thing, right? There's not a lot of defense in the Silvan archetype, you know, and there's probably better warrior defensive cards than this guy, but
certainly there are,
you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the Imrahil thing, it's not horrible, but I don't know. There's a place for this guy, but not a very big one. And the Defender of the Nath, we can put him right in that same.
Yeah, group. And I always, like I said, there's reasons to run both. You know, the Defender of Nath being Sentinel was one of the big ones. I kind of actually preferred this guy just because I thought he was more, because the Defender of the Nath I think has 2 hit points, and this guy has an extra. Right. So I like this one. I was like, oh, he's more likely to like actually survive an attack or 2.
Right.
Like he could block 2 attacks and live, and then you get to return them to your hand to trigger other effects, you know, like Island Amid Perils or whatever. So I'd say it could be scenario dependent, you know, or maybe he's not a 3 of in your deck. Maybe he's like just a one of, you know, and you kind of mix That's something I've kind of considered too, or I've learned from playing Silvan decks. I was like, oh, I don't really necessarily have to go hard and put like 3 of each type of ally. You can kind of mix and be like, I'm gonna have 1 of this and 2 of this, and okay, 3 of these and 3 marksman Alorians. But so maybe this is a guy you only put in like 1 or 2 copies because you won't have to rely on his ability.
Right.
But I think he's a good. He's another defensive option, which the decks just need.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. What about the art for this thing?
I think the art is cool. I really love spear weapons. I think spears are just cool.
Okay.
And that's what he's holding. He's holding like, a Mirkwood elf spear, and his armor is very, elfy leaf.
I was gonna say
style.
Elfy. Yeah, it is.
Like he looks exactly like I would expect him to look.
Right. It looks like a guy standing out of the halls of the Elven King, right? Thranduil's hall,
Right. So I think he looks pretty cool, and maybe that's like subconsciously why I play him.
Just because
as much
he's
as
cool.
I do it, because I'm like, his art looks cool. He's a stout, sturdy defender of the Greenwood, and I like that his name is Greenwood Defender too, right? Because that's Mirkwood's old name.
Right.
Like, it was called the Greenwood until it was dubbed Mirkwood due to the darkening, in the Third Age.
Right.
So he's got his art and kind of lore to that sense, I think, is a nice little flavor touch on the card.
Yeah, I think the art looks really good. I think it's a good generic defendy elf looking, art piece. So I like it. It fits. Doesn't quite fit with all like the Magali elf Silvans that are out there, but definitely
good.
Fits.
Runner up though,
Yeah. It's definitely a good piece of art. I like the spear. I like the background, kind of the entryway into the hall. That's there with the green behind him. So, just looks very good. Makes me wonder if this card was originally scheduled to be a lore defender card, which would have been interesting.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
I don't know if it would have. I don't know if it would have mattered or if it would have gotten played more or less. But anyways, should we ring this guy?
Yeah, sure. Let's bring it up, I suppose.
Okay. So for anybody who may have forgotten, or maybe you're new and you don't know, we have a highly scientific yet arbitrary scale where we rank a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the one card to rule them all, or one of the best cards in the game, and 10 is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made.
Indeed.
Yes. So, Ted, you went first last week, so I guess I will go first this week. I'm just not a fan of this card in the Silvan archetype. And I think that there's better warriors to pick in the warrior deck that you were talking about with Imrahil. So I like that he's got a little cheekiness with the doesn't exhaust to defend until the end of the round, but I still don't think that is enough to get me to play this card. So while I see that there's a space in the card pool for him, I just don't think that that's a space that I like to visit. So I'm going to give this guy an 8.
8. Yikes.
Well, Ted, I don't really build my my Greenwood Defender deck.
Yikes. Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from on that. So just given all the feedback and stuff and your much experience with Silvans. So
are you going to disagree? Are you going to disagree heartily with me? Or are you going to say that this guy's pretty good?
No, I'm still gonna give him like, I guess, like a 6.
Oh, you weren't
'Cause
though. You weren't gonna do it. I could tell you were gonna give this guy like a 5 or a 4.
I still think that yeah, you're right. There's some good heroes that do the job of defending. I think he's a good supplement to that, but right, he's just not going to go in every single Silvan deck. But I think he still has his place among the many choices that players have.
So you still think he deserves a 6? Of course he has a place, but
yeah,
do you pick him to go into that deck?
Uh,
Next time you and I play, Ted, let's both bring Silvan decks. I'll see how much your Greenwood Defender... I'll bring a Silvan deck, and we'll see how much the Greenwood Defender actually helps.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's good.
Do that.
Boo. Boo. Boo, Greenwood Defender. I don't know, maybe somebody out there... Maybe Matt's going to think something different, right? Maybe. I don't know. I just don't think he's all that... I see the value, but I don't think it's worth the value. So, I don't know. Anyways. Well, everybody, if you're yelling at me and you think that you're not happy with what I say, comment. Shoot a comment and see what I have to say. See what you say about this guy. Otherwise, folks, we'll see you again next week. So, have a great day, everybody.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.